Well, good morning, everyone. Hey, Scott Henderson. Hey, we're going to do a quick trade recap. This morning's open. We noted just before the open that we were going to take QQQ short right out of the gate. We spend a minute here and try and explain what I saw and what different indicators help me see this. Now, I'm going to start with the premise here that first, I have a lot of crap on my chart because it tells me a lot. I'm not going to recommend that you guys do that. You need to basically set up maximum 3 indicators, learn how to use each one first independently before you combine them together. All right. So with no further ado, let me jump into this. Okay. Now what you're looking at is my scalping rig, right? Now I'm using a 15-minute time frame here, which we're going to zoom down for a second, once I do the replay. Now I have a crap load of indicators up here. And I have not put this in swing trade notes because, to be very candid, I don't think a lot of you are ready for as many indicators as I have. So I don't put it out there. I don't promote it for that reason. However, what I've come to focus a lot lately around smart money because of how the market's reacting. When we're trending, I look at it differently than I do now, because right now you either follow the flow or you're wrong. So if you're late following the flow, most of the time you're wrong. So the premise here was into Nvidia earnings. Now notice we had the ramp off of yesterday's open, not today's open, yesterday's. We had a nice ramp, held the flag. Now note this particular indicator here. That is the volumized order block by Flux Algo, right? Now that is a tool I would recommend that you have up there, all right? What it does a number of things, gives you volume metrics, gives you that little box. So ultimately, what this tells us is that we're getting a breakout. So in other words, we've got the wick down. It's set our low into a gap, because we had this gap here, right? We back tested. It was extremely strong. Actually, I tried to short that and lost a couple grand on it, because most of the time we do back test 50% back. But in that sense, I knew we were going to launch. Now, what happened is once we put in this kind of wick thing up here, it was pretty much done for him. So we had a sell side imbalance that printed up here. So notice, now this is a 15-minute time frame. So this is how I saw this trade. First of all, we had peaking drive 1, peaking drive 2, peaking drive 3. And what do you notice about them? Equality, right? Now, first of all, to even consider a reversion to the mean, you need 3 peaking drives, period, at least on a corrective. So let's do the replay here just for a second. So we're going to go from yesterday's open. So we got that nice pop into the open. Now there's how we establish this resistance bar right here. That's the bar that is currently creating. So I know this. This is that wick that I spoke about as we're building into this trade. We've now taken out the highs. However, note that it's not with a lot of volume, right? And the MACD has crossed. It basically is telling me it's going to win. It's just a matter of when. So we got a peaking drive 1, peaking drive 2 clearly in an MACD cross. And we come back and we test this fair value gap. Notice how we wicked right to it, right? Not quite all the way through it. Coming up, now we're testing that fair value gap to the high side. That is where I would have gotten long if the market was open. That was 6:15 a.m. this morning. So I'm sitting here watching this and I'm like, don't dump, don't dump, don't dump. Let me get it. Let me get a piece. I can't tell you how many times I've been there. So now we broke the gap at the open. So here's where I loaded up. I knew that we were going to come back down. As soon as we got this trigger here, I was looking at it, and boom, we were done. I closed a little early. I closed right here at about 6:09. Reason is because my prior support band from the prior daily close, the opening range, was at that 608.93. So that's where I took profit. In other words, the trade for me was a break below this band, right? And then my exit was here. It was a very quick trade. I was looking for a couple bucks, right? I would have liked to have gotten more than the $2. It yielded about 15.96% using QQQ put. Now, I will say this. Not every trade is that quick. So, we don't sit around every day waiting for that kind of trade. However, when that trade comes, we want to make sure we're prepared. So that's today's trade recap, folks. Hopefully that was helpful. I will do a little post with a few of I got to decide which I want to share. However, that volume order block is something that I would like you to put on your chart, because it is a very functional tool for smart money. Really figure out how to use that first before you add anything additional to your chart. Outside of that, folks, great trading. Until next time.